Enough?
There is a slight fear associated with the energy I feel move around in me. What is that about? Or do you have any input on that?
Do you know what fear is?
Thinking in the wrong direction?
Not wrong direction, but a different direction than your inner being. You see, your inner being is always thinking in the direction of your desires, of who you have wholly become through all that you've lived. So when you think an opposing thought, in other words, when you think, I would like to be of value to this world, that's your desire. And your inner being not only knows that you want it, but knows that you are it. Your inner being knows it in present tense terms. Your inner being sees you there. When you see yourself not there, that's an opposing thought. And that opposing thought, you see, you summon so much of this source energy that when you go in the other direction of it, that's what negative emotion is. That's what fear is. So fear is your loving indicator that what you're doing with your mind right then is causing resistance that is preventing you from receiving right now what you're asking for. You're less likely to do that in meditation. You're not going to fear during meditation when your mind is quiet, because when your mind is quiet and you're synced up with your greater mind, when you've only got that one thought going or that one perspective going, there can be no contradiction to that one. And so it's only contradiction to that energy that causes fear or anger or depression or. So your question was?
The last part of the question was what is the somewhat slight fear that I experience when the energy in my body starts to move?
It's a somewhat slight thought about something about it. Esther was afraid she was going to be possessed. She had heard that. Oh, Esther, only bad things will come when you tune into God. Was basically what she was hearing people say. Pure positive energy. She knew it was good. She could feel it was good. She'd never felt love like that before in her life. And then some fearful people warned her about it. And she thought, that can't be right. Something that feels like this can't be that, you see. So it might be that. It might be a little bit of feeling like you're going to lose control, but you won't. You cannot. You can sync with who you are and gain greater awareness of who you are. Esther realized after receiving us in those really early days that if the telephone would ring, she would immediately feel the release of whatever it was we were doing, and off she would go. In other words, she realized that we were not there to control her or to possess her. We were there to be a vibrational match to every single thing that she had ever asked for, and to beam a signal about that so clear that it would be obvious to her in every moment of every day whether she was in sync with her own desire or whether she was opposing it with old thoughts that she'd picked up along her physical trail. And so you'll free yourself from that in time. But one of the things that we've noticed, and we like this so much, as you hear us here, many of you have had the experiences that we're talking about. So everything we're saying here is just confirmation of what you're already living, or what you're already living is confirmation of what you're hearing here. And there's some of that with you too, of course. It makes sense to you. But until you have actually quieted your mind and you know it, and then received a thought, and you know unequivocally that you have received a thought from source, regardless of the subject matter, and you have known that, and so you have followed the impulse of that thought, and it has led you to that, some call it a still small voice, and yet it's not something that you're actually hearing. It's something that you are knowing. It's something that you are feeling. It's something that you are moved toward. As you begin to move in the direction of that, and then wonderful things happen as a result of your having moved toward it. Now you have personal knowledge of many things. Personal knowledge that you've connected, personal knowledge that you are in the receiving mode, personal knowledge that you received, and personal knowledge that you acted upon what you received, and personal knowledge that it was a good thing, that it moved things along, that it turned out well. Then and only then is it your personal knowing. That's why when you said that you want to become enlightened, that's what this is. You want to become enlightened, and you want to have this clarity pouring through you, and you want it to be for your benefit and for the benefit of others. That's why we want to say to you that through the clarity of your example, others may find this for themselves too, but you will never be one who receives a big wad of goodness and then asserts it into somebody else's experience. Because if that were the case, you got to know source energy would have been asserting it into all of your experiences. Source energy is offering it to you, squirting it in your direction, but you've got to let it in. And in many cases, you got to learn how to let it in. The beasts of your planet still well remember how to let it in, and you call them instinctual. You say they have really good instinct. It must have come through their cellular body. And we say they're tuned in, tapped in, turned on mostly. When you domesticate them, some of them begin to act like you do, but the beasts in the wild especially are pure receivers. And because this is co-creation at its best, sometimes that gazelle is inspired to run right into the jaws of that lion, because it is co-creation at its best. And so
I guess I did also,
is that question resolved?
that question's pretty resolved.
Then let's leave it there. You'll hear more as we're moving forward. Yeah.